Hello and welcome to the Relax. It's Retirement Podcast with your host, Josh Leonard, where we talk about transitioning into retirement with intent. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hey there, Josh.
How are you, Wendy?
Oh, I'm just dandy. I mean, I have to say it that way because I was accused of not being fine earlier. So,
Yes. For all you listeners, we record these on Mondays, and Wendy threw out a happy Monday, and I'm like, "Is it? Are you? It doesn't sound." She's like,
I'm fine, Josh. I'm
"Yeah, I'm
fine.
fine," which isn't very convincing. When people say "I'm fine," it actually means the opposite, right? So
Isn't that
we're gonna have fun today, Wendy. So
just your wife, though, Josh?
I'm blessed that Yana can be pretty blunt with me sometimes, which is a lot easier. In fact,
No guessing games.
yeah, no guessing games at all. So
No guessing games. Okay, so let's get to work. We have
let's
too
do it.
much fun. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about time. It just keeps on ticking into the future, Wendy.
Okay.
We're talking about time in reference of retirement. In retirement, that doesn't mean that you're out of time. Rather, it's a new chapter. And, I think in all stages of life, we have things that kind of put the, time back into perspective. For us this week, our youngest son, Isaac, is turning 6, which is kind of mind boggling because, he's still like a baby, but he's not at all.
The rail liquor, right?
The rail liquor, yeah. He's not really doing that now. I mean, now we
Thank
went.
goodness.
I know, right? Even your perspective of my kids, time keeps going on,
Yes.
I think like when your kids are born, that's it. It's like a day-to-day challenge, right? And every day seems so difficult. And now like our boys play together. They're growing up. We've been going on long bike rides. Like Isaac had a day off of school already, and we went for a 7-mile bike ride together. And he just like knocks it out. A couple snacks are needed along the way, but he does a great job. And for Yana and I, it's crazy to think that he's turning 6 already. He's growing up. And I think, in retirement or at all stages of life, we have these things where it seems like time has kind of stopped when we're transitioning or have something new in life. But in fact, it's just a new chapter and there's plenty more time. So we're going to talk about that and how even in retirement, time can still be on your side.
Okay. I want to just go into that Rolling Stones song every time you say that.
That's it.
But I won't.
I keep thinking of Pink Floyd a little bit too,
Okay.
Anyways.
So time is probably our most precious commodity, correct?
I think so. Yeah, always. I think there's the saying that the present is a gift, right?
Mhm.
That we have time, this current time. Sometimes we look too far to the future, too far in the past. Well, in finance, we do both all the time, right? We're always looking in the back, historical returns, all this kind of stuff. I think one of the things with time that comes up in investing a lot is, oh, you're young, you have a lot of time. And we talk about the power of compounding. So compounding interest over time is amazing. If we take $1,000, we invested for 45 years at an 8% average growth, Wendy, we'd end up with $36,163.60, or about 36 times what we initially put in.
Right.
So we'll hear things like that cited for, oh, you just finished college, save $1,000 or make sure you're contributing to your 401k. And while most people don't actually do that at all, right? At that stage, we're going to go have fun now that we're actually earning some money, right?
Right.
I would say that we can think of a long time horizon, even in retirement, like a 30-year timeline. My grandmother passed away this year at age 97. If you're retiring at age 65, guess what? That's 32 years. That's a long time. And if we think of end of life, like in her case, she was in a nursing home. We might have a lot of expenses then. Nursing homes are expensive. So we've talked in the past about accounts like an HSA, where we can put money in while we're still working, maybe those couple years leading up to retirement, save that money in an HSA, and then let it compound over time. So let's say, Wendy, we put $1,000 in an HSA right before we retire. We let that again grow at 8%, this time for 30 years. We don't have quite as long of a time horizon, but 30 years is still a long time. That $1,000 would be almost $11,000, be $10,935.73. So even in retirement, we still have time. We still have time to let things compound. Now you might say, okay, well, great, Josh, your grandma lived a really long time. But what if I need money in between that time period, right? So we look at compounding even on, a 20-year basis. 20 years at 8%, well, we've still almost 5 times or 5x our money. So if we put $1,000, it'd be $4,926. So great. I'll take 5 times the money I have at any point in any account, right? That's great.
Absolutely.
So let's let it ride. Okay, well, still 20 years, we could keep taking that down. Of course, we're not going to get the same compounding position. But if we think about our retirement planning, and we've talked about the 3 buckets before, Wendy, our cash or emergency fund bucket, that is not going to have a ton of time to compound, especially at 8%, right? We're right now we're lucky to earn 5% with interest rates higher. In most markets, it's going to be 3% or less. So there, we're not going to have that time to compound. But that's money that we need, right? It's for emergencies. If we need down payment on a car or something like that, we need that money tangible. Our income bucket, well, there we can earn a little bit more. We might have some compounding effect, but we need that for income, right? So that bucket, okay, we get a little bit more interest, but we need to take it out. That growth bucket, we can have 10, maybe 20, maybe a 30-year time period in that growth bucket to still get that large multiplier of compounding. So much like Isaac turning 6 now, and it seems like it just flew by, that 10, 15, 20-year time horizon in your growth bucket in your retirement funds could easily be a reality for you.
So you should still always be investing even when you're in retirement.
Yeah, I think as we transition into retirement, we think of retirement as a preservation and distribution phase, right? We've saved up the money. Now we need to preserve what we have and then slowly distribute it out for our needs or maybe afterlife. Well, that doesn't mean we can't earn money and still compound it over time as well. We just need to take a prudent approach, like we talked about with the buckets.
Okay.
So, see, Wendy, you got tons of time. You can always save more for retirement, right?
I hope so.
I think the other thing is we can leverage time with financial tools. So, when we talk about, not only investing and compounding over time, there's tools like life insurance, where if you're young and you don't have much money, but let's say you just started a family and bought a house, right? So you have kids that you need to pay for and a lot of debt with a mortgage, right? But you got a place to live. Well, if something happens to you, you can utilize life insurance to then give a lump sum to your loved ones to help support them. So life insurance can be kind of a time hack when you don't have time to let that compound. So in the idea of time, let's utilize these tools. On the opposite end, we can use tools like annuities, where there we're hoping for a long life. If we look at my grandmother, if at her age 65, she retired and used a guaranteed income feature on annuity, most of those are based on average lifespans. So your break even point is typically somewhere around age 83 with a reasonable interest rate built in there. That's when most people pass away. So if you think you're going to have a long life, okay, great. We could extend, we can leverage time to get a little bit more out of that insurance company and have a good base there as well. So I think a lot of people might shy away from annuities due to expenses within them. That's one negative that we hear a lot, as annuities can be expensive. I think it's another time leverage tool, right? If you think you're going to live a really long time, you're worried about running out of money, you can use something like an annuity to leverage the assets that you have today to make sure that they last for your lifetime as well.
Okay. I like it.
I think, if you're worried about the market falling right before you retire too, and you know you need a specific amount, sometimes using a guaranteed feature in something like an annuity can help you leverage that time there as well. Again, thinking about your time span to needing income is a lot shorter than using all your money, right? Many times in retirement, people think of, well, I'm going to retire in 2 years. I need to put all my money under the mattress. Well, that's not really the case, right? As we talked about before, you still probably have 30 years till you might need all the money, but we need the money to be strategically timed out over time.
Okay. So how do I make sure that I'm using my money sparingly so that it will last?
Yeah, so I think one of the rules that we've talked about before, and kind of a common rule in retirement planning, is the 4% rule. Um, that can be something. So, the 4% rule, quick crash course, is whatever you have at retirement, you can spend roughly 4% of that each year, inflation adjusted. And the study that this cites back to is based on a 60-40 portfolio. So 60% of the portfolio in stocks, 40% in bonds. If we look back to times like 2022, when we had an interest rate cycle where interest rates went up very quickly, both stocks and bonds got hurt in the short term. So if we're withdrawing from a portfolio like that, it could be a little bit shocking to take all that money out when both sides of the portfolio are down. Traditionally, the idea of stocks and bonds is that they kind of work inversely, and we get some diversification effect there.
Is it just me? Does 4% not sound like that much?
I think a lot of folks feel like it's not that much, right?
Okay.
I have $100,000 in my 401k and I can only take $4,000 a year out. That's not enough, right? Or I have $1 million and that's only $40,000 a year. Yes, but I would like to flip that and say, if you're retiring, especially at like age 62 or 65, right? You might have a 30 plus year long retirement. So let's be prudent there and let's be careful. Let's make sure that we're not withdrawing all the money in too short of a fashion. The 4% rule is just kind of a baseline rule. So like we talk about, we take a bucket approach where we can adapt then. We have our income bucket to give us some time to let our growth bucket grow. But we're covering 6 to 10 years worth of income. In a lot of markets, not in all markets, that could enable you to take a little bit more than 4% out of your portfolio sustainably. I think what scares us as planners, Wendy, is when people come to us and they're telling us, I have $1 million portfolio or $100,000 portfolio and I'm taking 10% out per year. Well, you got 10 years then, right? That doesn't give us that much time to allow those compounding returns. We're stressing the portfolio a lot. And then if we have a big down year, we don't have the ability to make up from it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you first retire, I mean, I think that typically, especially if you want to travel and stuff, you're going to be spending a lot more in the first couple of years, say the first 5 years, than you will on the rest of it. So can you kind of adjust for that, knowing that you're going to go do a lot of travel and spend a lot of money in the first couple of years, but then you'll be calming down after that?
I love it. Yes. Fantastic question. This is something that we think is one of the keys to planning rather than just following something like the 4% rule. In a plan, we can build out and say, hey, these are going to be my highly active years, right? I'm going to retire at age 65 or age 67. And for the next 10 years, I'm going to assume I'm healthy. I want to knock out Italy. I want to, go to the beach every winter so that I'm not stuck in the cold northern weather, whatever it might be.
Right.
Let's build those in and let's do a budget around it. Like we talked about in our last podcast with tips for traveling in retirement. Okay, let's set a realistic budget and say, hey, if I'm spending, maybe an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a year on travel the first 10 years of retirement, how does that impact me? Well, if I'm going to run out of money at age 82, then that's probably not a very sustainable plan. If we say, okay, we're going to cut down that travel budget from $10,000 to $7,000, is that sustainable then? Okay, great. Then we need some travel tips to save some money there. But absolutely, retirement spending is not always linear, that, we take this is what we need plus inflation every year. That's not typically how people operate. I would always joke that my grandma would have a heart attack over the price of bread and milk every time she went to the grocery store. Now, this was a few years ago. The last hit of inflation would probably hit her even harder now.
Oh my goodness.
But to me, if I go to the grocery store, a lot of times now it's like at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night, we're running out to grab a couple things to be able to pack the kids' lunch in the morning. If the loaf of bread goes up by like 20 cents, I don't even notice it. I'm grabbing it off the shelf. My kids like to eat this, and I know they'll eat it for lunch. I'm grabbing it off the shelf and going home, right? I'm not thinking about it as much. I think as you get older and a lot of your income is fixed, you're not getting maybe raises at work or growing in your career path, that inflation mentally hits you a lot harder. So you start curbing your spending. There's a few studies that talk about, on average, we start spending about 1% less per year in retirement, even with the increase in medical expenses later on in life. So that pivot point is typically around age 83. So it's right around that average mortality. We start slowing down. So a lot of times, going back to your initial question with travel, we're planning that maybe in the first 10 years, where, hey, we're going to have a bigger budget for travel and more of an active lifestyle. Maybe it's traveling to regional pickleball tournaments, or if you're a big golfer, or like I've been into mountain biking. Hopefully I'm still able to do that once I get older, but I'm probably not going to be doing that at age 83. It might be happening at age 65 or 67 or even 70. But the probabilities in your 80s, start decreasing a lot more. So we can kind of build into a budget ahead of time, to kind of hedge against that expense.
Okay.
Yep. I think, another thing with timing we talk a lot about in retirement is market timing. So, Wendy, you know how to time the market, right?
Oh yeah. I buy low and I sell high.
That's exactly it. Yeah. There's another investor that often talks about buy high and sell higher, right? Like if you sell higher, then that was actually low. So these are all just perspective terms.
True.
I think where we get in trouble is forgetting about time, right? We could buy at the worst times of the market or the best times in the past of the market and still be okay. So Morningstar has a great slide that we often show to prospective clients or clients in time of volatility, where we go back to 2008, right? This was sort of the most painful crash that a lot of us have. We had COVID, we had the interest rate hikes in 2022, but 2008 stung a little bit more because it lasted for a while. If we had invested $100,000 in 2000, so lived through the market crash with the tech stuff and then the mortgage stuff, if we just left that money invested in the S&P 500, it would now be about $978,000. If
Oh.
right, yeah, 100. Oh, that's like a 10x, huh?
Yeah.
That's amazing, that compounding, isn't it?
I love that.
If in 2008 we said, hey, you know what? I'm done with this market stuff. I lost a bunch of money. Josh, I hear you, but I can't take it anymore. I'm putting it all under my mattress, or, I'm leaving it in cash at the bank. That 100,000 would now be 144,000. So, if you're talking to your neighbor about your retirement portfolio and you had put it all in cash back in 2008 and stayed that path, man, you'd be pretty jealous of your neighbor at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're somewhere in between, right? Maybe you were worried about the market, as everyone was at that time. And you said, hey, I'm going to put it in cash and sit on the sidelines just for a year, and then I'll reinvest, right? I'll let things calm down and then I'll go back in. Well, now that $100,000 would be $595,000. So still almost 6 times your initial investment, but the alternative of just staying invested is almost 10 times. So I'll take 10 times over 6.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know
that's
about
really
you,
just a difference of 1 year, huh?
of being out. Yeah. So in these
Crazy.
extreme times of volatility, sometimes we can make very, very expensive mistakes. And that's why we work with the 3 bucket approach. We help clients know that they have time to be patient over that 6 to 10 years and let that growth stuff do its thing. It's going to go down at some point. We know that that's going to happen. We are not going to try to time the market and say, hey, I'm going to pull all your money out exactly before the market goes down. And then just as it starts to go back up, we're going to put it all back in. Because if I had a crystal ball that told me all that, Wendy, I probably wouldn't be working, to be honest. I would just be giving money away all the time. That would be
Right.
my job.
Oh, I like that job.
Okay, well, you're hired. If I figure it out, I'll let you know. But,
Okay.
there's many times there's tempting financial tools of, hey, we're going to pull you in and out of the market exactly on time. I've yet to find one that is sustainable over the long term, right? I think prudent investing, some of our most famous investors like Warren Buffett are what we call buy and hold investors. They buy quality things and keep them for a long time, right? And Warren Buffett's secret to wealth is that he's really old and he's just been doing it for a really long time, right? It's not like he's getting 40% returns every year. He's beat the market kind of consistently, maybe by 1% or 2%, just over a really long time. So use time on your side, even in retirement. We don't need to necessarily be in and out of the market. We need to make sure that we're structured properly, that we don't have to be pulling a lot of money out of the market when it's down.
Okay.
I think the other thing that's important with time in retirement is making the most of your time in retirement. This is a new chapter. It's not the end. It's just a new chapter, right? Now you have time to do things maybe that you've dreamed of doing for a long time, but you never had enough time to do it. So utilize your newfound time. And that might be, learning a new hobby, getting really good at pickleball. I'm trying to learn how to golf, and I feel like that is an endless amount of time that I could spend on that. And then I'm also riding my bike. So, there's not enough time. Well, in retirement, in theory at least, some retirees will argue that it doesn't exactly work this way. You have more time, right? That time that you were working, now you could dedicate to something else. Maybe you've worked really hard, and maybe you worked for many, many years, 80, 90 hours a week, and you wish you would have spent more time with family. Now's the time. Now you can transition, and hopefully that hard work paid off to some extent, that even if your kids or grandkids live out of state, you can afford to go travel to see them more frequently.
Yeah, no sitting in a rocking chair knitting blankets for everybody.
Yeah, or on the front porch yelling at people too,
Get off my lawn. Do I have that down?
Yes, yeah, that was good. That was good.
My mom taught me.
Yeah. Get off my lawn. Yeah. Well, it's to each their own. Maybe that makes you happy in some way. I think we talk about, retiring with intent and living with purpose. So another thing you can do with that time is, maybe be more active in your religious organization or volunteering in your community. Time is an asset. So even if you don't have endless money to, donate a bunch of money to a charity, well, now you have more time. And sometimes those hands-on volunteers are equally, if not more, valued than the monetary donations that charities get. So again, leverage that time, to make the world a better place.
You got it.
Yeah, I think, to me, looking at Isaac turning 6 now and getting bigger, I feel like I could always spend more time with my boys. I think as the weekends end, I'm like, oh man, did we do enough? Did we get to, get enough done? Of course, we're trying to maintain the house and all that other stuff, and then do fun things with the kids as well. Time is going to keep on passing by, so we want to make sure to leverage that time with our loved ones. I have to laugh because my boys think I'm way older than I am. And many of our listeners will look at me and be like, Josh, you're so young. Well, to them, they think I'm like 100 years old, apparently, because they're like, Dad, when you were a kid, was there color TV? Like, was it black and white? And I'm like, yeah, of course it was color. I'm not that old. And then
did you have
Eli,
a telephone in the house?
Yeah. We did. Okay.
Was there
We had
internet?
electricity too. Yeah. So Eli had asked me once, he was like, Dad, at night when you were a kid and you read a book, did you have to light a candle? And I was like, yes. Yes, absolutely. That was the only way
Oh,
I could see.
I
Um,
I love him.
so I think, at different ages, we have different perspectives of time. But I laugh because to my kids, I'm so old. To my parents, I'm so young. And then, as a kid, when you look up to your grandparents, you always think that they're old, right? And I
Right.
remember like my mom turned 40, and at the time thinking that that was old,
So
and
old.
now it's knocking on the door,
Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah.
So, even as I turn 40, I know, hopefully I have at least 60 more years of life left. So that's just one phase. We continue to move forward. Um, you know, time is something that we need to make sure we're utilizing properly. We believe that a financial plan is a key to that. Transitioning into retirement, into this new chapter, let's map that out financially to make sure that time is on your side, that you can leverage both those personal and financial goals within that. So, any listeners today that maybe we piqued their interest, talking about the compounding or maybe some personal things that you would like to do in retirement, schedule a 15-minute call with us. We'd be happy to help you start laying out that framework for a plan. So schedule that 15-minute call. We can see if we're a good fit to work together and help you reach your retirement goals. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, like, rate, and review the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to click the bell to be notified when we upload a new episode. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, listeners, and look forward to seeing you next time.